you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Moore
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. I am Jimmy Murphy. My co-host Pierre McGuire is en route from Toronto to, I believe, the New York area, coming back from the Hockey Hall of Fame induction announcement prep, and then of course the announcements today. He will try and join us sometime during the podcast. We'll see if he can tune in or not. We'll know, and we'll bring him in. But I do have a guest coming on to join me either way, and that is my longtime friend and media colleague, Rob Simpson, who covers the Vancouver Canucks and the Seattle Kraken, and also used to cover the Bruins and worked with Nesson as their ringside reporter when Zdeno Chara signed with the Boston Bruins. And for probably the first, I think, he'll tell us when he comes on, but the first 3 or 4 years of Chara's tenure in Boston. And I bring up Zdeno Chara because he was one of 6 players that made it in the player category today in the Hall of Fame. There you go. Jennifer Botterill, Zdeno Chara, Decker, Duncan Keith, Alexander McGillney, Joe Thornton, and then in the builders category, longtime BU coach Jack Parker and Danielle Savio. I hope I pronounced her name right. Quite the class there. And I think obviously the one that everyone's talking about right now is Alexander McGillney, who finally made it in. I think I read that he was eligible since 2009. I have no idea behind the scenes why it took so long for him to get in there. You look at his stats and it made no sense. I don't know how much Pierre can talk about that. We'll ask him, but he has to watch out when he's talking about the Hall of Fame because he is on the committee there. But he did clue me in that Big Z would be making it in, and he was really excited about that because he has a great relationship with Chara. We are actually going to try and get Chara on either in the next few days, or if not, we're going to wait till we start up our once-a-week broadcast going every Wednesday in the summer. So basically, just so you know, for our broadcast going forward, we're going to be on tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. Same time as usual, 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. Monday, 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. And Tuesday, which is free agency day, 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. And then we're off until the 9th. And then we'll go every Wednesday throughout the summer. I don't know, we might take a little longer break. I got to talk it over with Pierre, but that's kind of looking like where we'll go in terms of when the daily show stops and we're just going once a week on Wednesdays. But we will keep you posted on that. But yeah, quite a Hall of Fame class there. And we'll get into it a bit with Simmer about Chara because we both got stories to tell about him and working with him over the years. Thornton, though, I'm really happy to see too. Thornton was on the Bruins when I first started covering the team. My first season was 2001-02. And Thornton was on the team. Of course, he was traded in November of 2005, shortly after becoming the captain of the Bruins. So 2 former Bruins captains going to the Hall of Fame today. But again, the big story is Alexander McGillney. And, it took long enough for that. So, sorry, I just saw something weird in the chat room there. Interesting. Somebody's reposting our stream. Okay. Maybe we got to look into that, guys. Anyhow, I still will never get over that trade. But as expected, he went on to have a Hall of Fame career, and Jumbo Joe will go in there in November. We're all good. Okay. Thanks, guys. So we'll talk about that. Also, the trade rumors are flying. We already had one yesterday that we analyzed here on the podcast with Trevor Zegers going from Anaheim to Philly. I'm working on about 3 leads right now. There was a lot of chatter this morning on social media amongst some media members, and I did some digging behind the scenes, trying to gather intel on whether this whole Thomas Hertl stuff out of Vegas is on target. A lot of people around the league, we've said it here, believe that Vegas is going to make a serious run at Mitch Marner. I've been told there's mutual interest there. But clearly they'll have to, clear cap space and trade a big name player, a key player on their roster. And the player today that was being bantered about the most was Thomas Hertl. I'm working on confirming his trade availability. What I have been told in terms of the rumor that he might have been going to Carolina is there were discussions, but nothing to the point of where they're right on the brink of a trade. So that was just a rumor there that was about to happen, and clearly it hasn't happened yet. Maybe it does. Who knows? But I'm just telling you what I know at this point is that was just a rumor they have. Carolina, amongst other teams, has inquired about Thomas Hertl. So I'll keep you posted on that. Just tons of stuff flying around right now. I had to talk to a couple GMs today, and they said they've never seen a buyer's market like this. And because of that, because of the supply and demand, the few sellers that there are can pretty much name their price and really dictate the market. And it's going to be interesting to see if there's any overpays for some players, right? Because, you can just basically hold an auction, so to speak, and see what happens there and hope for the best. But we'll get into all that stuff later. We're going to talk now about the Hockey Hall of Fame inductees, and my man Rob Simpson is joining me, and Simmer absolutely nailed it in his column today. He picked every single inductee correct. I've never seen that before. Simmer, great job.
Well, thanks, Murph, although I'm pretty sure I did mention the fact in the article that 3 of them to me were no-brainers, and that was, of course, Chara, Thornton, and Keith. I did put in the plug for McGillney. I was like, what the hell? And if you compare him to some of the names that were popping up his other first years, it's like they're not getting in if he doesn't get in. Because dude had 1,000-plus points in 990 games and 473 goals and was uber talented in the 90s. I think a lot of people are happy, and I know Vancouver Canucks fans are probably stoked, and Buffalo Sabres fans as well. Of course, haven't had a whole lot to be stoked about for a while.
Simmer, I don't know how much you can say or what you know on the topic, but like I was just saying off the top, for whatever reason, they kept skipping McGillney over. I mean, what was your take on that? Why he just couldn't get in? I mean, it's just politics or what?
Yeah, I think it's something that it's below or beyond my reach and a lot of people's reach. There could be, who knows, Russian stuff, maybe pissed off the wrong people, whatever. He did have some down years where he had some injury issues. It was Brian Burke, who's on the selection committee, who traded him in the year 2000 at the deadline to the Devils.
Yeah.
We actually did him a favor because he traded him to the team where he won his only Stanley Cup.
There you go.
But in terms of what kept him out, I mean, who knows? There's a lot of comparables. I mean, there's a lot of guys kind of in that range. So, who's our buddy with Tampa Bay, and it was also in Buffalo, who finally got in. Had very
Andrechuk?
Andrechuk. Because we were pumping his tires back on the old radio show on Sirius XM all the time, and he finally got in. Kind of similar, it's like, well, when the hell is he going to get in, right? So maybe it's an anti-Buffalo thing. No, I'm joking.
Who knows?
But what's really crazy is the small hockey world, Murph, and I write about it and talk about it a lot when you've been around long enough. It's like Chara, I've stayed in touch with over the years. We did the Kilimanjaro thing and all that. And Thornton, you just talked about it. I jumped on here right while you were talking about the Thornton trade. I was 2 months into my tenure at Nesson.
Yeah.
When I get a call from the studio, from the producer, goes, "Hey, Simmer, you want to come in and talk about it?" I was 3 wines deep over in Cambridge because it was like a Tuesday. We just got back from New Jersey.
Yep.
And I was like, probably not a good idea. And they got Kevin Paul DuPont to come in and do it. The esteemed writer from the Globe. But I knew Joe and a little bit. I knew his brother. He used to bartend up at the top by Capitol Hill there in Boston.
Yep.
But pretty amazing. You said you didn't like it. I loved the trade from day one.
Really?
That franchise needed to be shaken up.
The
day before that trade, I was on the road covering the team, doing the games live. I'm in the dressing room after. I've written about this. And Joe, as a captain, was pretty surfer guy, right?
Yeah.
Tie game late, final minute. John Madden face off in the Boston zone. Raycroft's in net. Madden wins the draw back to the point. Boom, they score. They win a 1-goal game. Sully's the coach. They're in like a 8-game, whatever, skittish kind of situation. After the game in the dressing room, Joe, what do you think? We're rushing to get to the airplane. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. Everything's all right. I'm like, no, not everything's all right. So when they got rid of him, by the way, besides Wayne Primo and Brad, Marco Sturm,
yeah,
your freaking coach right now,
yep,
was part of the Joe Thornton trade. Michael Connell took a lot of shite for that trade, but I think he did a reset. And then Jeff Gordon came in, did the Ray Croft Tuukka Rask thing. He gets gassed. I thought he got hosed. Sully got hosed. He's proved himself with other additions, but he was a victim there. So they rebuild. They free up the money, and in comes Zdeno Chara. So how about that for
kind of syncing it together? Yeah,
two of them going in the Hockey Hall of Fame.
There you go.
And then Jason Botterill, Jennifer, she's now a fixture on the studio at Hockey Night Canada. Her first ever TV game was ice level. I'm play-by-play. Cassie Campbell-Pascal is color. And we're doing the university finals in Canada, in Calgary. We did that 2 or 3 years in a row. And her first gig was our ice level gal for one of those series. So it's 2 degrees of separation. It's incredible.
Let's talk about Chara, though, because like you said, you got to know him really well. You did a lot of work with him, the trip to Kilimanjaro. Just take us back when you started to get to know him, not just the player, but the person off the ice, and what the impression was he left off you from the get-go.
My first thing was right before we did Tanzania, he and the Right to Play people, the humanitarian organization, who I'd gone the year before with Andrew Ference and Steve Montador, rest his soul. They had taken him to Mozambique. Chara's playing duck, duck, goose with little African kids that are about 2 feet tall. He's crouched down, holding their hands, getting up and running around. Sums them up perfectly. Like the guy is a beast on the ice, 6'9", 250 or 60, like some ridiculous 6-7% body fat. And off the ice, just like sweetheart, kind, super gentleman. And it was on the Killy. I was still a little bit intimidated because I knew him somewhat from talking to him in the dressing room and all that good stuff.
Yep.
But that really kind of started to get the barrier came down, and it was quite a bond. When you spend 6 days, 5 guys, you're going through this grind, to say the least. So I learned a lot. He's an incredible guy. And I was at his cup party when he won at the Castle in Trenton. What was that, 3 years later? And as you know, don't need to tell you, fell short on 2 other occasions.
Yeah. He was something. You look at him, like you said, you talk about his size and the intimidation factor of him on the ice and what he can do in terms of physicality, but then off the ice, as is so many times the case, I find, Simmer, in hockey, is the toughest guys tend to be the nicest guys off the ice. It's really weird, but it is the case. And I just remember having so many just conversations about other stuff in life with him and just talking about things like that. And that's how he was around the dressing room. But when he went on, he meant business, and it was
terrifying.
Yeah. It was really interesting to watch, though, like the development, like of how he continued to build that team and that culture with that, right? He was the foundation of it. It went out from him. And you got to give, look, and I'm not taking anything away from our good friend Jeff Gordon, who was the interim GM at the time. But, Peter Chiarelli came from Ottawa. Chara was in Ottawa. So people, I find sometimes in Boston, Chiarelli doesn't get enough credit for his role because he played a role in that. I don't care what it is. Let's call a spade a spade.
Absolutely.
And it was just a great vision by him to see that this is what this team needs is a foundation like Zdeno Chara to build the off ice training culture, the mental part of it, the discipline, everything it takes to be a champion. And he got there in 2006, I believe, right? And 5 years later, they're winning a cup, which is amazing.
Let's see, 05, 06, 06, 07. Yeah, second year. That was when Dave Lewis was the coach.
Correct.
So Sully
and Mark Savard was signed on the same day.
Right, and then Claude.
Yep, and Claude came in after 1 year of Dave Lewis. Sometimes I forget Dave Lewis was the coach there.
I know, for you.
It was just so quick.
We shot some fun TV shows.
Oh, he was great. He's
Dave
a good
Lewis.
guy.
Oh, speaking of that, Rubber Biscuit, our old show on Nesson, was a cult classic. And guess who watched every single episode and used to talk about it all the time?
Chara.
No.
Oh.
Small Hockey World again. Jackie Parker.
Oh, and there we go. Who was also inducted into the Hall of Fame.
And also inducted in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I ran into him at the rink at the Beanpot, and he'd be like, Simmer, I love that show. And he'd talk about the episodes. It's unbelievable.
Did you ever have Z on that show?
I'm sure in some way, shape, or form. Might have just been like some kind of profile thing.
It was because I was trying to see if I could find an old clip to use on YouTube, but every time I typed in Rubber Biscuit, Zdeno Chara, it was just all the Blues Brothers and the Rubber Biscuit song. Like,
I don't think
Zdeno Chara was a Blues Brother.
at that point in time, Char was not doing anything fun on Rubber Biscuit. But you know what's funny is Joe Thornton years later was always cool because I loved the trade and I was vocal about it and all this stuff. I used to do these 3 questions.
It worked out for everyone.
Oh, he's awesome.
Yeah.
But I do these 3 questions with Simmer things for the Sirius XM show all the time, like this little quiz show, and I'd get superstar players, captain, and head coaches to do the shtick with me. I'd pick them up in Toronto during morning skates. Joe comes out, and the last smart ass line of that one was, you know what I remember about the Joe Thornton trade? My hair looked fantastic that day. That was like his closing line. It was awesome. He's a good guy.
One final thought on that trade too. It's not that I always thought the problem was and I'm not letting Joe off the hook for some of his things that led to it, but I always felt like the problem was the team, the media, the fans in Boston always want Joe to be the next Cam Neely or the next big bad Bruin because of his size, right? And he wasn't that. He was like a jumbo Adam Oates. He's one of the best playmakers ever, right? And he just was what he was, and he just didn't fit the culture of Boston. And that's why he succeeded so well and lasted in San Jose, was because he was just built for that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I always wonder, Simmer, if they hadn't slapped the C on Joe that year, if he would have got traded, because I felt like that took the expectations to a whole nother level, and there was no way he was ever going to live up to it there.
Especially in that market. And the other thing I've written about and extensively at various points is the Bruins screwed the pooch coming out of the lockout.
Oh, yeah.
So Jeremy Jacobs is big shot on the board,
Mm-hmm.
and they all know what's going on behind the scenes. He's thinking, okay, we're going to get rid of everybody, and we're going to get discount free agents. We're going to load up this roster. Well, guess what? The thing comes to an end. They signed like 9 guys, like Brad Isbister, Dave Scatchard, Alexei Samnov, who broke his ankle like a month in, Travis Green, list, because they're like scrambling because they effed up their strategy coming out of the lockout, which they were basically responsible for in the first place.
Right.
So the roster was just a mishmash, a potpourri of what? No personality or no identity. Yeah. Yeah. So not only was Sully a victim, O'Connell, but
it was a
Joe. Really, what the hell? It was a mess.
Yeah. And I think about that before the lockout, Simmer, remember that 03-04 season?
Yeah.
They got upset by Montreal in the first round, but I still say to this day, and I've had a conversation with a couple of guys like Marty Lapointe or some of the other guys who were on that team. Sean O'Donnell, I think, was on that team. If they had kept that together, those guys really felt like they were knocking on the door there, Yeah. And then, of course, coming out of lockout, Raycroft's disaster season 2, he fell apart. And by the way, today's the anniversary of him being traded to Toronto Maple Leafs.
Really? Yeah, the knee injury.
Yep.
I mean, they had Muzz, Glenn Murray, who was a snipe. They had Thornton working with Murray. And I remember the first ever game I did on Nesson was Crosby's first home game. And, Boston beat Pittsburgh in overtime, and it was Thornton to Muzz. And we're like, oh, okay. But what I remember with that previous season is Bergeron was a rookie.
That's right.
Played in the playoffs.
Yep. He scored.
And who slashed? Remember when Glenn Murray scored on a breakaway because somebody faked an injury.
Kovalev. It was Kovalev. Yeah.
I forget who slashed him in the arm, and Kovalev was like, ow.
Yeah, looking for the call. And then the puck goes the other way, and boom.
Murray picks up the puck, goes,
yeah, here we go.
And he buries it, but Montreal won the series.
Yeah. But as far as Chara goes, back to him, I mean, well-deserved. Knowing him, I know he just took a role. It's not really defined with the Bruins. But what do you see him pursuing as far as a hockey role, if this continues with the Bruins? Where do you see him in? Coaching, management, what else?
Jimmy, whatever he wants.
Yeah. He can do whatever he wants. I'm just trying to picture what
I would see kind of maybe management, player development.
That's what I feel like.
Especially this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a discipline that maybe is lacking in a lot of markets and teams this day and age in particular. Players have changed a great deal.
Yep.
He's a lot different than a majority of the players right now. So it'll be interesting, but I don't know how much time he'll spend on the ice. I think it probably, I mean, it's really hard to say. He can do what he wants. He's an interesting cat. Like, he runs, he bikes, he has kids, he speaks 8 languages. Like, do whatever you want. Like, he's that situation. Hey, the other topic we need to cover today, bud, because we had talked about doing it, and because we can get to the Canucks some other time. That's a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah.
But the Kraken.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Seattle
really
Kraken.
Interesting right now.
I think they're going to sneak up on people right now. Simmer. Am I feeling that right? I feel like they're up to something.
Maybe, but they've kind of put themselves in an awkward situation with some of the deals they've made. So I just got off the phone today with the agent for Capo Caco. And also the agent for Mason Marchment. So Mason Marchment had his media avail on Zoom, and I don't know how to make that little hand come up. I still haven't figured it out. So they go through all the guys are asking the pretty standard fare, oh, welcome to town, or whatever. And I'm like, can't get the electronic hand to go up. So I'm at the end, I'm like, she just goes, okay, that's it, bye. So I go, oh, shit. So I just I go bye, and I call his agent to figure out what's going on. And here's why. Okay. He comes in UFA next summer. Brand new team. He's eligible for a deal. They're not talking. They're not going to do anything till he knows whether or not he's comfortable. They know he's what they want. He's just got married in the last couple of years. He's having a kid in September. The missus is going to factor into, decision-making. Are they going to be the family going to be in Seattle? I assume yes. And then they can say whether they like it or not. That's an element to this, but they don't know. Here's the other thing. He's exactly what they need. The team lacks toughness. They lack an identity. Him and Kako together, big bodies. Kako's still kind of finding himself that way, although he has strong board play and he's working out in front. If they can build an identity around these guys, great. But they're going to have all the leverage because Kako's deal's up right now with Arbrights. And he's got his agent is 100% confident to get the deal done because that's kind of what happens when there's ARB. You're going to get it done. You don't want to go to arbitration. Probably a 3-year bridge deal for somewhere in the 4s. And then Marchment, who knows? Like, if he doesn't like it, the direction, they're not going to talk for a while. It doesn't make any sense for either side. But the Kraken are in an uncomfortable position because they bring this guy in to be a culture changer or an identity changer, and they don't even know if they're going to get to keep him. He might be like UFA.
What if he has a bust out season? What if he does awesome and then his value goes up? So
Joe Valeno, they finally dumped Andre Burakovsky, which is good, saved money. He's got a year. He's a depth center, whatever. But another guy that in a year it's like, all right, well, what are we doing here?
You mentioned a key word there. Every time I think about the Seattle Kraken, you said identity. I can't figure out what it is. Like, what are they aiming for? And that's the big problem with that team, man. What is their identity? What do they want it to be?
Exactly. Well, they don't have one. And it's same up the road in Vancouver. They're trying to reset their identity a little bit too, because their grittiest player got shipped out, and half their guts got shipped out, and they're no idea what's happened at the center position, especially with Pettersson being But Seattle needs to establish an identity. The year they made the playoffs, they had the highest shooting percentage at 5-on-5 in the National Hockey League. They had a third line like Morgan Geekie, your pal Pierre's buddy Ryan Donato, that ended up with 30 plus goals on the fourth line. Rookie of the year and Matty Beniers, et cetera, right? Decent enough goaltending. And they were fast. They counterattacked. They were a transition team. Boom, boom. North-south very quickly. Then all those guys walked. Three original 6 teams for the same amount of money. And they were replaced by just fragments of, I'm not going to get into, rip these guys, but just not a good answer. And you got what you got. And they haven't been the same. They need to toughen up. They need to keep the speed going. But you need to you need to respond to physicality, and it's a team that hasn't been able to do that.
I'm with you on that. All right. Quick news items too. There was one other thing I wanted to bring up. And Simi, you want to stay on for our Q&A we do with our viewers?
Sure. I won't
All
be
right.
able to answer prospect questions like Pierre does, but I can probably buzz through the rest.
We'll wing it.
We'll wing it.
The other thing I was going to bring up, interesting, and Pierre would have liked this because he can't stand how much misinformation is out there right now. How about Kevin Adams blasting the media today about the misinformation around his team?
I
Kevin,
heard
I don't
about
know
it. I didn't read the specific quote, but he's got other things to worry about.
Yeah.
I mean, we
don't take it out on the media.
Well, I mean, you could in Vancouver, the GM or whoever could say that, once a week. But what does that get you? Nothing.
Yeah. He says, I feel bad for, here's the quote. I feel bad for, he called all the rumors ridiculous. And he said, I feel bad for our fans. There's so much misinformation. It's nonsense. Someone that has no idea what they're talking about reporting that we're going to buy Sammy out, or we've never had that conversation once. He's talking about Samuelson. I mean, what does he expect? I get it. It is frustrating. I do agree with him. There is too much misinformation out there, but at the same time, you don't make the playoffs since 2011.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well,
you got to expect this is going to happen.
I empathize with a little bit because there's a lot of crap out there, and there's even established figures that just make crap up because they can.
It's really gotten bad.
Or they jump on somebody else's reporting and pretend it's theirs.
Yep.
Seen that a lot.
Oh yeah.
And the journalistic standards, not to be the old FUD, but the journalistic standards.
Yeah.
They're in the shiter right now.
Yeah.
So there's only a handful of people, or maybe a couple in each market. You can be like, all right, this is a legitimate deal going on here. But so I empathize because there's a lot of garbage, and there's a lot of people just throwing garbage around.
I hear you. Well, let me talk about our sponsor quick, and then we'll get to the Q&A. And I actually got a question I will ask you in the Q&A about the Kraken and the Sabres, but we'll get to that in a second. Let's tell everybody about our great sponsor, Betway. You can still go all the way with Betway, and you can still bet up to $200 on your first bet. This is if you're a new member, and get $200 credit back. It's amazing that they just pay you to lose there if you're a new member. So go right now, go to the QR code in front of you, sign up, or go to the website, sign up in the details section there, and get your welcome offer. You must be 18 plus. The offer is not available.
You look different. You look different in that.
I actually think that looks like Aaron Ward a bit, but green. So you can't do it. You can't do it in Ontario, and you always must bet responsibly. All right, Simmer, I'll kick the questions off, and then we'll get right to our viewers. Just sitting here as we spoke about Buffalo and Seattle, one of the names we keep hearing is Peterka potentially wanting out, and now they are entertaining offers for him. They don't want to trade him, but they are listening at least. What could Seattle package to get a guy like that? Because that could be somebody that could help them build an identity.
Well, the number one thing for the Kraken is they have draft capital. Okay. So they have cap room and they have draft capital. So on their existing roster, they're building their existing roster. There's nothing they really want to lose. They have some tremendous prospects. Mm-hmm. So regardless of who you're talking about, it's a combo prospect draft pick situation.
Okay, so see, it won't work with Buffalo because what does Buffalo have a ton of?
Yeah, exactly.
Prospects.
So they're not
they need warm bodies on NHL roster.
Not the ideal match because who are you gonna pluck off the Seattle roster, and who's Seattle going to be like? Oh no.
Yeah, you're right. They want to keep as many guys on the NHL roster as they can. All right, let's get to our questions. What do we got? J-Fed, why doesn't Don Cherry ever get in or get consideration for the Hall of Fame as a builder or lifetime achievement to the game? He's done more to grow to the game in the NHL than anyone else. I don't know if I'd say more than anyone else, but he did plenty, and I do think he deserves some consideration.
Love this question because it comes up quite a bit, and I was one who complained to Doc and to Chuck about the Foster Hewitt because it was always play-by-play guys, and Im was a play-by-play guy, love it, and all that good stuff, but that's not what the language says. It's a distinctive career in broadcasting, bringing wonderfulness to the sport of hockey. It doesn't say anything about play-by-play, but they being two play-by-play guys, they got in the habit of blah, 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 blah. So now recently we've seen Bill Clement. This year we're seeing Razor come in as a color guy and other people moving in there. My question is, and I've thought about this, Grapes, you don't really give him the Foster Hewitt, right? He would be like a builder almost level. But because of his politics and the fact he got in trouble, same question. How about his sidekick partner, Ron McLean? How the hell is this guy not at least the Foster Hewitt? And that raises the question, he said, hey, don't give me the Foster Hewitt. I'm going to try to hold out I transcend the broadcast, kind of like Grapes. Am I beyond broadcast level, and should I be in the Hall of Fame as an honorary builder as opposed to just a media honoree? Because they are two different things.
Interesting debate there. But yeah, I would say, unfortunately, it's just the politics right now, and some things that he said that I'm sure he regrets, but it is what it is. Yeah. All right, next question. Chris TV again. Question for Pierre. Pierre's not here, so Simmer and I will take it. The Penguins received the 12th overall pick today from the Rangers. Now that they have the 11th and 12th overall, what do you think Dubas should do with those two picks? They're in full rebuild. I think they use them. Yeah, take them.
That just raises the question: is I don't understand Kyle Dubas. How, who, what, where, why, and how is my question about.
Yeah,
Kyle. But I mean, here's the picks.
He promised a Stanley Cup when he was hired, from what I was told, and now they are in a full rebuild. All right, next question.
Regardless.
Juice for Jimmy. How realistic is it for Boston to trade up inside the top 5 of the draft? I know they're trying. I don't know how realistic it is, but they are trying, Juice. So we'll see what happens there. The guy I keep hearing linked to them now, if they are going to use their pick, if he drops to there, would be Brady Martin, but I don't know if he drops to there from people I've been talking to. So, all right, next question. Alex Ivanowski, who should the Bruins take if all are available? McQueen, O'Brien, Martin, or Merca? Those feel like their type of guys. Martin is the guy I keep hearing, but we'll see. Who knows? That Merca guy, though, is huge. All right, next question. Pearl of Wisdom. Is it possible that Seattle is acquiring assets for deadline deals in a build while being competitive? Simmer, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, I could see. I mean, they are acquiring assets, and they keep re-signing all their depth guys. It's an interesting question because it literally popped into my head a couple of days ago. They took care of all those fourth liners, kind of third, fourth liner fringe guys. They just re-signed Cale Fleury, who's basically kind of their seventh defenseman. John Hayden, guys like that. They've just kind of put the bottom together. So I don't know if that they can always toss those guys in there, but again, for them, it comes down to they do have additional draft assets for basically like this season and the next two. And they have some tremendous prospects. I think Jason Bauer will continue to build with some of these prospects. Like Villeneuve is incredible, like huge shot, physical player, fearless. They will get rid of him. Somebody was asking about Riker Evans the other day. The kid's 23, 24. He's played a season and a half. He's a defenseman. Give him a little breathing room here. They love him. He was one of their top 3 prospects a couple years ago, along with Ryan Winternen, who is kind of penciled in right now. It's the same in Vancouver, by the way, Jimmy. It's up the middle.
Yeah, that's where they need strength.
That's where it's at. Stevenson, Matty Beniers. They drafted Berkeley Catton last year. They brought in Boleno for depth. They're going to have a little battle in there, but they still need a superstar. The team doesn't have a star. And if they don't have a star in the middle, then they're going to have to do it by committee. And they're not going to lose any of those guys. They're looking for a center. They're not. They're going to.
I'm in half the league right now. All right, exactly. Next question. For Jimmy, how much has David Pastrnak grown as a leader in the Bruins locker room, and do you expect him to be the next captain? He has grown tremendously. I really like the way he embraced the leader role when things got blown up at the deadline there, and all those half the core was gone. Yeah, I do. I think at first I thought it was McAvoy would be the next guy, but I'm leaning more towards Pasta right now. And maybe, I don't know if we look in too much to their video they tweeted out the other day about the new uniform. Who knows? Maybe we hear something soon on that front.
The new uniform.
Yeah, the new old uniform.
Oh, okay.
They're going back to Simmer. They're going back to like the 80s, 90s ones that they had before the lockout.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
What's McAvoy's contract deal? Where's he at term wise left? Do you remember?
I don't know how many years left. Let's pull him up.
By the way, while you're doing that, I didn't mention Shane Wright up the middle for Seattle. Another guy who's developing, and they're not going to give up on him or move him at this point.
McAvoy has 1, 2, 3, 4 left at 9.5 a year.
1, 2, 3, 4 left?
4 years left at 9.5 a year.
Is he more of the captain type compared to Pasta?
Honestly, 3 years ago, maybe even 4, I would say neither was, but I think they've both matured and started to take on that role. And I think that's why Don Sweeney felt comfortable, trading away his captain and some other leaders in the room, because he thinks those guys can, take the torch and run with it. You mentioned Shane Wright. I think we saw a question there from Randy. Should we bring that up about Shane Wright? There you go. Do you think Shane Wright has arrived?
Well, he's arriving. He's had hell of a ride. I mean, since he was drafted and dropped to 4th, it was all like, ooh, what's wrong with the kid? And he won a World Juniors as a captain. He went back to juniors and played a season, scored his first NHL goal against the Montreal Canadiens. The team didn't pick him number 1. That was fun.
We were both in Montreal for that, Simmer.
Yep, we were indeed.
We had a good time there.
I think that's also the same year the Canucks took Elias Pettersson 2.0. The defensemen were like, what? Is this a joke? But he was actually a pretty damn good player. Shane Wright's starting to come into his own. The two-way play, I think it's the mind part of it all. Just kind of having the working the hockey IQ a little bit, but he's starting to show up. He's not going to be a number 1. I mean, his upside, I think people were thinking that was going to be a no-brainer, but again, he's part of that 2-3 grouping
mix. Yeah.
Right? Will they do it by committee? Stevenson, Beniers, Wright, and then whoever else they plug in the bottom. And will Berkeley Catton be that guy? Right now, talking to scouts in Seattle from other teams, they're like, same thing. Kind of, maybe Max is out at a 2.
Yeah.
So that's the situation in the middle for Seattle, and obviously Shane Wright's a big part of it.
All right, next question. Big Bill, Rob, could you give your assessment of the Habs, and what do you see them doing this offseason or during next season to improve their team?
Well, that's actually a Murph question, to be honest, because he's all over the Habs. But obviously, the fact they made the playoffs is tremendous. I've always been a pal and a fan, I should say, and an acquaintance of Marty. And they're young and talented and skilled. And, whatever they do next, I mean, Murph, you could probably address that better than I can.
They're going to be busy. They're going to be busy the next few weeks. And everyone knows they're looking for a 2C as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if they add a big name on the blue line. That's what I'd say to that. All right, next question.
Seattle has some 2Cs available.
A lot of them, apparently. All right, next question. Zal, I watched the video today of Dale Weiss versus Milan Lucic hatred during the Montreal-Boston playoff series.
Oh, yeah.
Kill you. It made me think about that. Can't believe that was 2014, over 10 years ago. It made me think about how the rivalry has changed. Do you think it's changing? I think, everything goes in cycles. It will get back. It will get back there. I mean, Montreal is kind of going to be the better team now, so I don't know how that affects it, but it will get back.
Hey, in the early 2000s, they were kind of close together, right?
Yep.
And then Boston kind of took off.
Right.
And Montreal is still kind of a pain in the ass at times. It was still tough going into the Bell Center.
Yeah.
But you're right. Now it's going to be a little bit flip-flop, and Boston fans will get a kick out of trying to beat them and probably trying to beat them up. I don't know if the Bruins team identity is in that mode right now, big bad Bruin mode.
No, they're looking more for speed.
Intermittently.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Montreal has the advantage right now. I think it's dead from a physicality nasty, but all it takes is one, incident.
Yeah.
And then everything gets going again. I do remember that is when there were T-shirts out.
Yeah. Yeah. They lost. That's when the Canadians beat them in the second round in 7 games. Game 7 in the handshake line after the game. He said that. It's also when PK Subban kissed my co-host after the game in his post-game interview.
Right.
Pierre
So
McGuire.
the shirt said what Milan said, I'm going to
bleep and kill you.
I'm going to have to kill you. And I think it was like the t-shirt had like an F and the little stars or like
Correct.
asterisks.
Yeah, I remember. All right, next question. Juice, in 2007, when Chara was a free agent, what other teams was he it was actually the year before Juice, but what other teams was he considering with, or was he always going Boston? I don't have an answer to that. Maybe you do, Z. I mean, Simmer on Z. Were there other teams he was looking at, or was it just kind of everything happened real fast?
You're testing my memory bank, but I think because of the Shirelli connection,
it was just.
I think that was they were pretty. He was somewhat myopic if the numbers were right, and obviously the numbers were right, and the term was right for sure. Yeah. And I think maybe a condition was make me captain.
Yeah,
because he stepped in as a brand new player, new to a team, and was made captain.
Yep.
So all the elements that he wanted were in place, and I think when he evaluated the roster and evaluated where it was going, he's like, "Yeah, this is."
I'm glad you brought that up too, because I'll own it. At the time when they did put that C on him, I criticized it because I just didn't think it was right for a player to come in from another team as a free agent sign and be instantly named captain. I just thought, that's something you got to build and earn. But man, he's arguably the best captain they ever had, or one of. He's top 5 for sure.
I think at least one of the New York teams, if I recall now, back 20 years.
Probably the Rangers at that time.
Yeah. And of course, he was an Islander draft pick.
Would have been the Islanders. They thought it was a good idea to trade him.
I know. He hadn't been there. Well, that was one of Mike Milbury's.
Was that for Yashin? Was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a medium length list of screwy trades.
Yes.
Right?
Speaking of, today is also the anniversary of them drafting Rick DiPietro, number 1.
Oh, God. And then he got a 13-year contract. I think.
Still getting paid on it. Is he on the Bobby Bonilla thing, or is it done?
It might be. I think it's close to wrapping up.
Okay.
I think it's wrapped up because he had the Yashin for 13-ish, and he had DiPietro for 30. Oh, guess who they gave up? Roberto Luongo. Roberto Luongo was the Islanders goalie, and they picked a high school kid from Massachusetts.
St. Sebastian's, my alma mater.
What is it?
He went to St. Sebastian's, my alma mater.
Really?
In Needham, Mass. Yep.
I'll blame you.
I'm seeing somebody in the chat room saying a trade just went down.
Ooh.
What? No, that's just a rumor. Okay. Next question. A to Z me. Glad to see McGillivray get his Hall of Fame due. Which player or players do you guys think should be in that haven't been in yet?
I'll go to goalies because they're the ones that seem to come up the most besides McGillivray. So because now that he's in, and we talked about Andrushuk earlier a couple of years ago. There's always some Chris Osgood talk because he left to go to the Islanders briefly, but the knock is I think it's 300 and something. Like he has a threshold of victories and other statistics and Stanley Cup champion. They would say, sure. But I think the knock is Vernon is in. And I think the knock is, well, shit, you spent $88 million to win a cup when, like, for example, in 2002, Carolina spent 30.
Yeah.
So there's a kind of a financial, political, situational knock against Ozzy. But if you look at his career in Detroit, he's right on the bubble. And I'm trying to think. There's one other goalie that usually pops in my head, but I can't think of it.
I'm thinking of one. We've been talking about the team a lot today. Tim Thomas.
I've never thought he was a Hall of Famer.
I think the argument is strong, and I agree with you, is that is not a long enough body of work. Yeah.
Longevity.
Yeah.
There's been other, and I'm not going to call Timmy a flash in the pan because he wasn't that.
He won 2 Vezinas. Let's remember.
He won 2 Vezinas. He worked his ass off. He was he played over in Finland. He played in Sweden.
Yeah.
Late bloomer of late bloomers. The story's incredible. I think he was in his 30s when he showed up to Boston.
First NHL game was in his 30 years old.
He was a lot of fun. I love the guy. Like, he did some really cool stuff on Rubber Biscuit, by the way. He was really fun to deal with that way. Goofy, outspoken. Politics were a little, but that doesn't matter. He he carried the one team to that championship. You mentioned the Vezinas, but it's
basically 2018
window.
12 is basically it.
And here's the question, though.
2008 to 2012 is basically his body of work, if you think about it.
But could you think of other goalies that just kind of showed up and had incredible runs for 2, 3, 4 years, and then for whatever reason, that was kind of it? I mean, they're not names that won cups necessarily, but
no,
if we had time,
he's maybe the only one that's won a cup, I think.
Maybe there might be others.
Well,
we could put a list together.
We should.
8 or 10 goalies with a similar window.
Is Cam Ward in that category?
He lasted longer. Yeah, I mean, a lot of them, it's oddly enough, a lot of them, it happens early in their career too. Like there's no pressure on them. They're full of adrenaline. I don't know. It'd be fun to kind of put together, but I don't think somebody else brought that up and said, "Oh, he's got to go in." I said, I don't think so.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something too. I know a lot of Canadians fans are like, "Oh, I can't believe Price didn't make it in." Price will get in. He'll get in.
Yeah,
I think he does.
I would think so. God,
I'm seeing somebody over there. Jay Fed is saying, "What about Keith Tkachuk?"
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at his numbers.
Yeah,
I don't think he was the most popular guy in terms of
he's not everyone's pick, but
around the game.
He was an amazing player, though. It's just his stats.
Yeah, I know.
Hands, another one. All right, next question. A moment of clarity. Who has the most cups that is not in the Hall of Fame? I do not know that off the top of my head. That's a great question, though. I mean, immediately I start to think of Canadians, Islanders, and Oilers players.
Right. Well, that's a difficult question because just because you won cups doesn't mean you're going to the Hall. And just because you like you just mentioned, third and fourth liners, defensemen like Dave Langevin won 4 cups with the Islanders. He's not going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And then you could list that off in all the Edmonton Oilers teams. Guys are like a lot of those Oilers in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But you're not going to put everybody in. So I'm sure. Oh, yeah, the Montreal Canadiens, like you said, in the 70s, there's a slew of them, probably in the 50s, that aren't in the Hall of Fame that won gobs of cups. If you want to go more recent, Detroit had the grind line. Draper, McCarty. These guys were fixtures, keys to the whole thing for 15 years.
Yeah.
They're not in the Hall of Fame, and they're not going to the Hall of Fame. It's just the way it is. Yeah,
that's a good question. I'll think about it and get back to you maybe tomorrow night. All right, next question.
Yeah, like a legitimate candidate who's won the most cups.
All right, what do we got? Randy Workman. Rob, what is your opinion of the Canucks? How do they go about fixing things?
Well, they have 11-point-something million reasons per season why they're not going to be able to get rid of Elias Pettersson unless they want to keep a big fat chunk of contract, which they don't want to do. And people are going hairy fit here about, oh, what if he doesn't play up to his standards? Well, gee, what if he doesn't? They're going to be in a little bit of trouble. So they need a little identity. They need help up the middle. They could use help everywhere. I would think they're in the position to draft best player available, regardless of position at this point, because they could use a center. They could use additional help at the wing. When I refer to identity, I'm kind of similar to Seattle. After Miller left, your grindiest little bugger is 5'7" Connor Garland? Another guy that they were the mathematicians in the market were clamoring to get rid of 3 years ago. I said, don't get rid of this guy. He eats, sleeps, breathes hockey.
Yeah.
I mean, he's an example of the identity you want to build around.
Right.
Now, just plug in guys that aren't 5'8", 165 pounds, that have the same mentality, then you have yourself an identity.
Yeah.
By the way, Linus Karlsson, he's a righty centerman, and just led the Calder Cup playoffs in scoring goals, scored the cup winner.
Wow.
I think his confidence level's through the roof, played 23, 24 NHL games last year. So there's another legitimate candidate to bolster that lineup this coming fall. It's a little goofy because of the Miller thing. They brought in Desharnais and Forbert in the back end last year. They wanted to go big on the back end. They jettisoned Desharnais after a couple of months. They've just re-signed forward. So that kind of played itself out, but they're still kind of wiggling around behind Quinn Hughes. And
what about the goalie situation, brother? I think there's an odd man out. I think Demko or Lankinen are gone. One of those guys.
Well, they're not going to get rid of Lankinen because he played so well and he's healthy.
Right.
Thatcher's the question mark.
Yep.
So
and then you pull up and you got to pull up Sealivs, right?
And Sealofs, but is somebody going to want to risk the Demko, right? He's a top 5 goalie in the NHL when he's healthy.
Yep.
When he's
I think
healthy.
somebody will.
So it's a possibility. But here's the other thing. Then you're rolling the dice on Sealofs. He just won Calder Cup playoff MVP. He was the Vancouver Canucks goalie, because it's also the Abbotsford Canucks. Last year in the playoffs, played pretty damn well. Got it within a game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he played 10 NHL games this past season, wasn't very good. Then again, the team was like, so who's to say how the environment affected that? But he should be maxed out in terms of confidence right now. So yeah, goaltending, the most important position on the ice. I actually think they're in good shape because they do have options, right? They might move one.
I would be like, hi, Danny Briere. What do you think of Thatcher Demko? That's where I'd be looking right now.
All right. I like it. I think that's might be the direction they head. If they're
not going to trade him to Edmonton. We know that. So they don't want to help the Oilers.
I think they'd like to move him and bring Sealofs up.
Yep. By the way, A to Z me saying Google has the answer, Jimmy. Claude Provost, 9 cups, and he's not in the Hall of Fame.
There you go. Claude Provost.
There you go. That's it. All right, next question. Moment of clarity. Can the Panthers defer money with Marchand?
Don't know.
I don't know the exact answer to that. Get back.
Not gonna lie to you.
I'm going to ask Pierre about that tonight when I talk to him. Get back to us tomorrow with that.
Write that one down.
Next question. Outdoor dad with recent trades. So do you have dad duties off once you get back inside? Is that how it works or no?
What?
He said he's an outdoor dad. What happens when he's indoors?
Oh. I didn't know what you're talking about. I thought you were asking me a question.
I'm just being a wise ass.
I don't know. Did the Zegras trade surprise you a little bit?
Billy for Zegras, does this change who they might pick in the draft or any other team for that matter? Yeah, I think they need more two-way players there. That definitely doesn't. He's like people are slotting him in next to Mishkov. What's the plus minus on that line going to be like? I mean, so I think they do need some more. We're talking about the type of guys that Vancouver and Seattle need. Good, solid middle 6 two-way guys, I think is what they need. But I'm not surprised by it though. They need offense. Their power play stunk. He's going to help all those things. And, I've been a big Zegras critic, but he had a good year. He bounced back. He bought into a lot of what Cronin was selling and was a lot better in his own end than he was in prior years. So maybe they're getting him at the right time.
Is he fragile? He played 57 games. He
played
that 30.
That is one of the things. And that's why maybe you got to put some size around him. Some beef on the line around him.
He hasn't played a full season. He had one where he was close, but last 2 seasons, he's not been around a whole lot.
So we'll see. All right, that's all we got, Simmer. That was fun. Thanks for sticking around.
Yeah.
Anybody? Appreciate it. What All-Star game is that on the hat?
That is the 2004 All-Star game in St. Paul, which is extremely memorable for a lot of reasons, a lot of fun. But the last one before the lockout. What's that?
It was the last one before the lockout.
Yes, it was. And the late, great Bob Nagley Jr., who owned the hockey team with his son, Bob III, among others. I remember at the end of the whole thing on the Sunday, Bare Naked Ladies was playing outside at the Bye Bye concert. And I'm talking to B2 or B Junior, and a snowball fight erupts in the crowd, and the Bare Naked Ladies on stage are having while they're playing and throwing snowballs. That was a lot of fun in St. Paul. What a great hockey market. What a great hockey state.
Yep. And I was talking to Billy Guerin today. I hope he's doing well. He's got a busy week ahead of him. All right.
Love Billy G. I'm going to have
by the way, and speaking of Greg Cronin, their new head coach in Iowa for the Iowa Wild. So congrats to him.
Billy G's great. I interviewed him, maybe 2 months ago for a writing project I have coming up, which I'll announce in the not so distant future. By the way, we never plugged my sites today, so check us out.
Right now, check it out. Yeah, tell everybody.
SeattleHockeyInsider.com. You can dive deep into all the stuff we just talked about, and VancouverHockeyInsider.com, which I will be diving into a little bit later on. I've been doing a lot of Seattle lately because they've been busy.
Yep. And we ever going to see a rubber biscuit type show again?
Oh,
that would
maybe.
be fun. All right.
You never know. If the
Sounds
league
good.
will let me. If the league will let me.
Good stuff. That's Rob Simpson joining us here on the Eye Test. Thanks to everyone in the Q&A section for their questions. Thanks to everyone listening and watching. And, of course, to our production crew up in Montreal. It seems like it's hot everywhere, so stay cool. Watch some reruns of hockey and enjoy your night. We will talk to you tomorrow back here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.